people talk about pure American inventions, and they talk about jazz. No, I don't think so. I think that actually came from Africa. But I think half-hour sitcoms is the one thing we can claim we invented. And in terms of exporting these formats to other countries, which has included Israel, South America, Turkey, India, obviously Russia, Bulgaria, what we've discovered is that comedy is as universal as drama. Sorry, comedy is as universal as drama. And if we can go to these countries and maintain the writer's vision, the original writer's vision who developed these, in this case in America, and it was a hit in America, we can be pretty sure that if we follow the same basic creative beats, but adapting them to local tastes and sensitivity, or lack of sensitivity in some cases, we can duplicate that success. And the other great thing that happens is when we go to those countries, we begin to develop an enormously enthusiastic pool of new writers. Like most other places, comedy is loved, but for some reason, and I suppose sociologists could talk about the reasons, but probably the Soviet times there. I don't have to describe Russian history for you, but they consider comedies like Uncle Vanya and the Cherry Orchard. And you go, okay.
What is your impression of the cultural differences? Do the people in Russia understand completely the comedy? Because you say comedy is traveling same as drama. I'm not very sure about this, but what are your impressions? And you say that they have 200 more episodes on Raymond?
Yeah.
So obviously they developed their own
episodes.
And what are the differences between the original episodes and the ones that they developed?
Depending on the people there who are trying to help them maintain the quality, there shouldn't be much difference at all. I would think that, like any series, when you do 200 episodes of something, in my case, you develop a series. About episode 6, you're realizing that's about all there are. That's about all the story ideas there are in this series idea, or at least that's what happens to me. So, I mean, I can't even imagine doing episode 623 of Everybody Loves Raymond as a writer. But they seem to do it with no problem there. The quality is the quality. I mean, typically what we do is we show them a series. We brought Mary Tyler Moore down. I don't know how many people know the Mary Tyler Moore show, but it was iconic, an American series between 70 and about 82. And the idea of an unmarried woman moving to Moscow to continue her journalism career, not looking for a man, not depending on a man, is a little strange for Muscovites, frankly, where women have a different place in society than the rest of the world. It's just culturally those are sort of the hot buttons that you deal with when you're adapting these things. But for the most part, the comedy's the comedy. You know, it's conflict, and it's wordplay, and it's all of those things that we do in a comedy to make people laugh. But when doing sitcoms, I did run into Russian directors who said, we won't have a laugh track. Russians do not need to be told when to laugh. And I said, well, you know.
I think that's absolutely right. A couple of years ago, I had the real privilege of making a show here in Warsaw for the Walt Disney Company, and we shot it here. And I was asked to write 55 episodes of this sitcom for Disney, and we did that. I did that. And I was worried about what you were describing about, will this play in Poland? I had never been to Poland before, and but I did believe that comedy is comedy, and that like music, we all love to do it, and it's a universal thing. So I horsed on and wrote my 55 episodes, and the director, Thomas Safranski, who you might know, he translated them into Polish, and it all worked great, and it was Disney's #1 show when it hit the air. So I agree with you. Comedy's comedy. Formats, though, I mean, I do take what you say about the actual format. Maybe something that isn't quite so difficult to nail down across the world, because there are cultural differences where the meaning of something is somewhat different. But when you get into the nitty-gritty of the comedy, the dynamics of it, because it's conflict and we all have that, and there's a lot in common.
I found the way you speak about this process kind of again, kind of patronizing, and you know, maybe it's the world of industry, I don't know. When I tried to work with people who adapted my series, it was quite the opposite. I gave them as much freedom as I could. I told them, you have to know it, you have to make it your own. You know better than me how to make it. I've done it before. You should make it your own. You should make it your, within your own culture, within your own sensitivities. And you have sensitivities. And you have perhaps much deeper culture than I come from. You know, you are, someone mentioned Decalogue here. You know, people, when they've made in treatment in Warsaw 4 or 5 years ago, I always told them, your cinematic and background is much richer than mine, you know, so I could only help you just to explain to you what I tried to do, but it's your own show. You have to make it your own. And I'm not the one who is going to tell you how to do it, because you should know much better than me.
But in practice, when I'm in that room, running that room, with a translator, English to Russian, takes 4 times longer to pitch a joke, by the way. At the end of adapting that episode, not just changing the cultural differences, sometimes it's a whole new A story. Sometimes the B story's gone. I mean, it's doing just the opposite, in fact, of enforcing like a cop. I mean, that's the studio. I'm the writer. Very often, in fact, 100% of the time, if I'm doing my job right, that rewrite is far better than the original. Believe me, it's anything but, you know, me enforcing format. And what's the reason these things work so well is that they do reflect local culture. The ones that don't work at all are the ones that just translate them and go, yep, you know, just say the words in Russian.
The key thing when you're working on a project is not the idea, which I know we all think it is. It's, do you have the right team? And when you're doing formatting work and you're working across different cultures, it's finding the right team to work with that is going to ultimately mean that your work, your format, is actually going to work in that culture. If you've got the wrong team, it doesn't matter how brilliant your original conception is, it's probably going to fail. Equally, though, Hager's extremely lucky as acting as a writer-producer that he could get into negotiations. A huge amount of formatting work around the world is done by middle people, sales agents, people like this, and the creatives barely get a look into that conversation. You know, a deal is struck, and a check comes through the post some years down the line that says, you know, your TV format was sold in Uzbekistan, here's 10p. You know, and you know, that's it.
You own the right. And yeah. Then a lot of people are working on the business side, on the production side. I didn't do any contract in my life, you know. I don't care about it. It's not interesting me. I'm a writer, you know. I'm a creator, I'm a director. The thing is, and it is happening in America, that you have a say and you have the rights, and then, you know, you are in control. So it's not about being a businessman at all.
I think it must be, though, because all the producers that I've worked with, not many, because I've had a handful of very good, close relationships with good producers, there are still the people who dress up and go into the meetings and say what they have to say and do what they have to do to get the gig. And that's beyond me. I see that as business. That has to be business.
But you have to get to the point when these people, these suits that are going to these meetings,
I know,
they are working for you.
It's a partnership.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I still maintain it. A good, solid partnership is the answer.
I think you're both right. I mean, yes, it could be a partnership. It could be a different relation. You own the rights and you hire a producer.
But if it is a partnership and you don't, and then you're not in control and you just get reports, then it's not a real partnership. You know, that's the problem.
There are people that are filming comedy in Nigeria, yes, but you hardly can compare the kind of comedy Tim is talking about with the kind of things they film in Nigeria and they call comedy. The Nigerian film that is making global wave is the one that is depicting the African culture. Is the one that is telling the African story. Because give it, you may take it or you may decide to argue with anybody, but a film must be able to tell something about the people. Readily when you watch Indian film, you know that this is Indian film. When you watch Chinese film, you know this is Chinese film because of the way they go about it. I also believe that when somebody watches Nigerian film, the person should be able to know that this is a Nigerian film because there is something that is so peculiar to it. When you watch American movie, you know this is American movie. When I watch British movie, I know this is British movie. So there is something that has got to do with where the movie is coming from, mainly the brain behind the film. There must be something about your culture, about your tradition, about your root, about your background that you must have to project into the movie that somebody who is watching it should be able to know where you're coming from.
But in that sense, there's a lot of evidence that people have copied each other across the globe in television formats, in particular when you're talking romances, dramas, and sitcoms. And I don't think there is a fundamental problem there. I think what there is, coming back to Haga's point, is you need to know when you're having those discussions about any work that you personally are working on, is what's important to you in that translation. You know, what is it that made you want to create that format in the first place? What was the key thing that mattered to you? Do the people you're talking to get that? Do they actually understand what's core to this dialogue that you have with your audience, that they're trying to create with their audience? And do you trust them? So there are certain projects that I think come out of certain cultures, and this does not just apply to Britain, that are utterly unique from the creative point of view. They are unique worlds, they cannot be copied, and these are not, and though they're made for television, they're not expected to be formatted out.